Hi everyone, and welcome to my week 4 assignment video. Lately I've been making videos comparing different cities in the United States to other cities in the United States with their oral health, social disparities and whatnot. But today I'm going to be comparing a different country with the United States, and looking at their social disparities and oral health disparities and whatnot. And I'm really excited about this video because I found absolutely fascinating information about this. So today I chose to research China, and I chose that because I feel like China is very, very different than the United States when it comes to culture and way of living and that kind of thing. So I thought that'd be absolutely fascinating, and I found some really interesting stuff. So I'm going to start with some basic information. So the average income in China is 82,413 yen. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Which compared to US dollars is 12,058 a year, which was fascinating to me because I did think that China had a higher average income, but I guess looking at it, doing more research, the cost of living in China is not as expensive as I thought it was going to be. So their average income is lower. Their life expectancy is 77 years. As far as their transportation, they have some of the best public transportation in the world. So they primarily use railways, and then they also use buses, taxis, and bicycles, but not many people have their own cars. And that makes sense to me. I mean, we know how incredibly congested China is. It's kind of comparable to New York City. People in New York City don't really have their own cars, and so they just take the buses and the railways and whatnot. As far as education, they have 3 types of education: basic education, which is like elementary through high school here; higher education, which is like college; and then they have what they call adult education, which is for adults specifically. So adults who maybe when they first grew up didn't get the education, like the elementary school type education, can actually go back and get that. And this is really used to improve literacy levels in remote areas. So that's really great. The literacy rate, though, is 96.36%, so that seems like their plan is working. As far as college goes, there are 7.53 million university graduates, which is not as many as I would have thought. The population is 1.393 billion, so that's actually not as many as you would think. 40% of people have been enrolled in undergrad programs, but only 36% have gone through grad school programs and gotten a master's or a doctorate degree or something like that. So moving on to oral health conditions. So this is where it's so interesting to me. So I don't think that China has a really high priority as far as oral health, because when I was looking at this information, it says 90% of caries teeth in children are left untreated. 97%. That is insane to me. So basically, they're not even doing fillings on children. They're just getting left untreated. That's insane. As far as periodontal disease, 97.3% have some form of gingival bleeding and calculus in their mouth. That's an astronomical number too, 97 for both of those. And so I started doing some more digging, and I found out that China is the biggest tobacco consuming country in the world, which I would not have pegged China to be the number one. I honestly would have thought it would have been the US, honestly. 160,000 billion cigarettes are sold every year. That's insane. China makes up 30% of the world China makes up 30% of the world consumption of tobacco. I can't, oh my gosh, it's just crazy. And so that being said, 17,000 people die each year of oral cancer. That's a big amount. And so you can really see how the dots are connected there. So the 3 top causes of oral problems with China: definitely periodontal disease and dental caries. And so that's just crazy. But if we look at the top 3 causes of death, it also goes hand in hand with that. So number 1 is stroke, number 2 is ischemic heart disease, and number 3 is COPD. So sound familiar? I think we can see where that comes from. If we're literally selling that many cigarettes every single year, 160,000 billion, I can see why we have those issues as the biggest causes of death. So I feel like it really ties in well together, and that's a really unfortunate situation that they have there. So comparing all of this to the U.S., the average income in the U.S. is $61,937. Life expectancy is 78 years, which is really close to China, who is 77. Transportation is totally different, though. 86.93% of Americans use their own vehicles, which doesn't surprise me at all because, I mean, here in Colorado Springs, I feel like the majority of people just have their own cars, and I know pretty much every state I've ever gone to, people just have their own cars. Railways, we do have some railways, but they are mostly used in big cities, like I said earlier, New York City, or like Chicago would be a good example. Those big cities where people don't have cars. And then the education level is actually lower than in China. So 33% have a bachelor's degree, but only 12% of American citizens have an advanced degree like a master's or doctorate degree. So that's interesting. Oral health conditions. We have a much better handle on it here in the U.S. We still have a lot of room to grow, but compared to China, where they were having numbers like 97%, only 16.9% of children have untreated dental decay. So children's teeth are getting filled. Only 44% of adults have some form of gingival bleeding and calculus. So still a lot. We still need to grow there, but better than China. And then I went and looked at the amount of cigarettes that are sold every year here. We sell 249 billion, which is still terrible and awful, but it's better than China at least. And unfortunately, we still do have 10,000 people that die of oral cancer every year. So I think the main three oral health disparities are definitely still, periodontal disease, dental decay, and whatnot. I think those will always be the top three ones, but it's just a matter of looking at the statistics and seeing how prevalent they are. The top three causes of death in the U.S. are heart disease, cancer, and accidents, which is also labeled unintentional injury. So heart disease is similar to China. I think that might be more contributed to possibly like obesity, honestly, more than maybe our tobacco consumption. But tobacco consumption definitely has a role in that as well, I believe. So some questions to consider: similarities and differences. I've talked about a couple different things already, but I think the culture in China is just completely different than here in the U.S. I feel like we have a better idea about our oral health care, and we have more systems in place to deal with that. We also have more dentists here in the U.S. than we do in China. So in China, there's a limited dentist ratio. There's only one dentist per every 100,000 people. And so this causes them to have a mindset of being more symptomatic rather than preventative. In their mindset, they will only go to the dentist if something's happening rather than going into getting dental cleanings. And it also makes the dental care very expensive there and not as expensive here, even though it is still kind of expensive. And so I think that's a similarity or a difference there. Similarities are China and the U.S. are both very large countries. I think China definitely has more people jam-packed into smaller areas, but they are large countries. But I feel like overall they're a lot different than each other. But I think the same social disparities and oral health disparities affect the populations in a similar manner, in that if you don't have access to care, or if you have a low income, you're not going to be able to afford dental care. Unfortunately, more people in China have a lower access to care than in the U.S., so more people have more issues. But I think that they are affected the same as far as the social disparities. So as far as an active plan in China to try to help this, I think they're realizing that their oral health care is not where it should be. So in 2019, a law was put into place that bans all public smoking. So they know that smoking is an issue. So hopefully that will help them lower the amount of smoking. If people can't do it in public, that's going to be an issue. So hopefully they'll be able to just get off of it. And then Healthy China 2030 is a program that implements campaigns to improve awareness. So I feel like the more people are aware of the importance of preventative healthcare, then maybe the better off they will be. And then what other factors should be considered outside of social determinants of health that contribute to the population affected or this population selected? I think that definitely, again, culture and whatnot. I think that's really just the biggest thing. If they're not raised in a culture where dental care is accepted, then they're not going to grow up thinking that it's necessary, and they're not going to want to change their ways if that's not how they grew up and everybody around them grew up. So I really think culture is a big thing. I mean, it's a social disparity, but I just think that really affects it. But very interesting information here, things I didn't even know about. I was just very fascinated learning about all this stuff, and I'm thankful that the U.S. has such a high dental influence, and that we have been able to have dental care since we were a kid. You know, it's changed a lot over the years, and I think we've made great advancements. I think China is behind us a little bit, but hopefully they will continue to work hard and get to where we are now, where they can lower these really high numbers of dental infections. So thanks for watching the video.